Chapter 39, Chapter 36, The Forsaken Man. Chapter 36, The Forsaken Man. They all heard it, when the trap finally closed, shaking the building.
Rand,
Kat said, hand over her eyes and teeth bared in a feral snarl. They had gone up to the next floor, as he had told them, but then they had stopped. He had been right to not want them to watch him die, but neither were they going to leave him behind until it was done.
It is.
Jean whispered, taking a deep breath before continuing.
It is not certain. Perhaps, he may have found a way. We cannot know, not until we see.
Don't, Sten cut him off, more sharply than usual.
You don't want to see. And he wouldn't want you to. There's only one thing we can do for him now.
Habaruko, Nina said, hands shaking and eyes empty. Before anybody could say another word, they heard familiar, heavy footsteps on the stairs, and everybody's eyes widened in sudden disbelief and hope. Turning, they watched, holding their breath. And Rand appeared.
Ha!
Dees was the first to smile, regaining her usual cocky attitude in a moment.
Knew you wouldn't go out that easily, you big.
She trailed off, as they all saw just how pale and shaken he was.
What happened? How did you do it?
Mom, Rand murmured, sitting down against a wall and putting his head in his hands. By the looks of him, it had taken every shred of willpower he possessed just to get up the stairs.
She came after me, and she... Oh, Rand.
Kat started to walk towards him, then hesitated, visibly unsure what to do or say.
Dude,
Bao agreed.
There's no words, but...
Dees didn't even bother with words. She simply slid over, crouched down, and took his head in her arms. That seemed to reach Kat, as well, as she sat down on his other side, putting one hand on his shoulder and the other on his arm.
Damn it,
Ryu whispered under his breath, his hope and joy turning to ash that he could practically taste.
Damn it all.
Nobody else spoke more after that, as minutes ticked by, until Rand finally raised his head.
Enough,
he said, and his voice held both despair and wrath, in a way that had never been his before.
I can grieve later. Right now, we need to get him. Tika, Clarice, Ray, and now. Now.
His voice broke for a moment before he recovered.
It's not going to stop. He's not going to stop. He'll keep doing this unless we stop him first. I didn't think there was anything even more important than personal, but there is. Him. For the sake of not only us, but for the entire world,
Spar agreed, fingers caressing the handle of its whip.
Habaruko has evaded death for far, far too long. We must rectify this error, and we must do so immediately. Before he gets anybody else.
Bao cocked his crossbow.
The usual rules are off.
Ryu stood, he had rested long enough that he at least felt like he could still fight, even if just thinking about transforming again was enough to make his head swim.
We do what we have to bring him down. He doesn't live to see tomorrow's sunrise, and that's all there is to it. Let's go.
There were several more floors between the 6th, where they had waited, and the rooftop where Habaruko was fleeing to. Like the previous ones, the main halls turned 3 times either to the left or to the right, in the shape of a square that went all around the outer level. At any time, doors would burst open, revealing animated sentries made from tiny, but fierce enchanted statues or knife-wielding assassins clad as civilians or churchmen. The paladins continued to come as well, marching down the hall in full plate, armored and armed with spear and sword and magic as well. Ryu and his team ripped them all limb from limb without a moment's hesitation as they continued their advance to the top. Hours later, a trail of corpses behind them stretching through the grand cathedral from top to bottom, every last one of them was exhausted from fighting and casting and running. And yet, they still kept going, all as one, moving on fury alone. A rage so strong that they charged and fought and killed just as strongly as they had at the beginning, so pervasive that nobody even suggested the thought of resting or retreating. Nothing else mattered, not anymore. Nothing but the kill. And that was how they emerged on the roof, hundreds of feet above the island below, miles above the sea. They could see in all directions from their height, as the noon sun blazed down on them from above. The last floor had led them to the inside of a tower, which they had scaled, circular stairs winding their way around and up. At its top, they came out atop a massive bridge that led across the building below, and further beyond over a chasm, to reach the outer wall they had first passed through around the fortress. Habaruka was waiting for them at the far end of the bridge, his twin bodyguards still with him. There was another desk. There was more paperwork.
Wait,
Ryu said tersely, as several of the others tensed up. As much as he wanted to simply charge and tear into him, he knew better by now. Turning his attention to the archpriest, he sneered.
Well, big man? Gonna waste everybody's time some more with that cute little spell of yours? Or can we finally get down to business? In truth, I had hoped it wouldn't come to this.
Habaruka sighed dramatically, stopping his writing and looking up.
But you're remarkably persistent, aren't you? I don't suppose there's any chance you would agree to just end this peacefully, and leave without any further fuss? There is still time to walk away and return to your lives. Not,
Bao said emphatically.
Gonna happen. Even if we believe the word that comes out of your mouth, there's no way in hell you're walking away from this one. You had better hope you really do have God on your side, buddy. You're going to need all the help you can get. Very well, then.
Habaruka waved a hand, and the shimmering silver wall appeared once more, prompting disgusted groans and curses from most of the group.
Oh, don't be so melodramatic. If it's a fight you desire, then you shall have one, as I promised before.
Standing up, he beckoned his twin bodyguards as he turned around, and they stepped forward together.
Sinister. Dexter. Oh, come on.
Cat screamed.
You run like a cockroach all day, and now you're going to make your goons do your fighting for you? All this power you have, and you're too afraid to even use it directly. I'm afraid the time is not right for me to directly engage you,
Habaruka told her, looking over his shoulder, as the Kimoto clansman kneeled before him.
But a duel was promised, nonetheless, and a duel you shall have.
Turning back to his bodyguards, he raised a hand in benediction, and started repeating the same prayer he had said over Ray. This time, though, as he spoke, sparkling light washed over them both, red at first.
Saint Eva, praise these twins, who have dedicated their lives to your service. Grant them your strength.
Habaruka said, and the color of the light turned to gold.
Your swiftness.
Again it changed, to green.
Your immortality.
One more change, now to blue.
And your wisdom, so that none may defeat them. He's pumping them up, isn't he?
Ryu sighed.
Big time.
Bao grimaced.
Unless those bows are just for show, this promises to be marginally unpleasant. Rise, Sinister, Dexter, sons of Saint Eva,
Habaruka told them, and they stood, faces as blank as before and tongues flickering.
Defend the faith, as you have for many years now, and fight in my place against these unholy ones who wish to do me harm. Yes, Father Habaruko,
both twins said in unison as they drew arrows from the quivers on their backs, hands moving almost too fast to be seen, notched them against their bows, and fired in less than a second.
Get behind me!
Rand yelled, turning around so that his back was to the archers and hunkering down so that he was shielded by his back plates. Everybody dived for cover, arrows flickering past them. Fortunately, Rand was huge enough that they could all fit, even Jean. The big man winced as more shafts clanged off of his shell, but didn't budge.
Ow! Okay, those sting, but they're not getting through. Thanks, Rand,
Cat told him.
We'd be screwed here, without you. On the other hand, I'm totally useless. Even I'm not dumb enough to try crossing that bridge while they're still alive. Same here,
Ryu grunted.
Unless I forced another transformation. Don't,
Nina advised him.
That would finish you for today. Save it for Habaruko, and let us take this one.
Her eyes narrowed in concentration, and from the far side of the bridge came the crash of thunder and the crackle of electricity.
Did it work?
Cat climbed onto one of Rand's shoulders and poked her head over the top of the shell, only to fall back quickly as 2 arrows shot past, followed by 2 more.
Ack. That would be a negative,
Spar murmured.
I suppose with their increased speed and agility, they were able to dodge it. Looked like it.
Cat nodded.
Big ol' blast mark where one of them used to be standing, but he was just standing back, away from it. Incoming, mon amis.
Jean gestured skyward with his rapier, and they saw that arrows were starting to rain down, arcing over Rand's shell. Before they could hit, however, Dees raised her cane and summoned a small tornado that caught all the shafts before bearing down towards the twin bodyguards.
They'll probably dodge that, too,
she said, before snapping at Cat.
Don't look. We'd better get our plan going before they start shooting again. If they can dodge lightning, we're only going to be able to nail them with something even faster, and there's only one thing we've got that is, at this range.
She glanced at Bao, who nodded grimly and cocked his crossbow.
The trick is going to be getting a shot off without being nailed myself,
he said, glancing in the direction of the enemies.
Just one spell probably wouldn't do it, I don't want to bet they can't run and shoot at the same time. 2, then?
Nina asked, glancing at Dees, who nodded sharply. The two sorceresses both closed their eyes, and a moment later, there was a sudden wave of heat from their left offset by cold air from the right.
Just to be on the safe side.
Sten suddenly front-flipped onto Rand's back.
Oh. Idiot.
Bao yelled, but he poked his head and crossbow off to the left, aimed, and fired 2 bolts before ducking back. At the same time, Sten yelped and tumbled backwards, 2 arrows grazing the top of his head. Shaking his head in disgust, Bao reloaded.
Do not do that again. Got him, though. Double tap the one on the right. One left. He'll be more careful,
Spar said.
I'd better join you, this time. All right,
Dees nodded, and a moment later, all 3 of them cast, fire and ice and lightning all focused on the bodyguard.
And this time, nobody, damn it.
Ryu swore as Kat leaped up onto Rand's back.
Nay.
She stuck her tongue out in the general direction of the enemy, then paused.
Oh, wait. Never mind. You actually got him. Really?
Bao looked.
Hey. Looks like they did. Well, that's convenient.
Ryu poked his head out as well. One bodyguard was flat on his back, a pair of crossbow bolts protruding from his throat, and the severed tail of the other flopped weakly in a scorched crater.
All right, where'd Habaruka go? My, you are stubborn, aren't you?
The old man called down mockingly, and they all turned to stare up at the top of the tower they'd emerged from. He stood there, calm and confident, smiling down at them.
I had hoped that your bloodlust would be sated by now, but it seems your desire for violence knows no bounds. You've got that right,
Sten agreed, smiling grimly.
And you're all out of people to throw in our way. Time to face the music, holy man. Very well.
Habaruka sighed theatrically.
Though I am not a violent man by inclination, I can see that nothing else will satisfy you. As you wish, I will fight you myself.
He smiled again, eyes baleful.
So long as you can keep up with me, that is.
He began to cackle as he spread his arms wide and fell backwards, off of the tower top and into the abyss.
Shit.
Kat yelled, covering the bridge in about 3 seconds and racing around the wall top past Sinister's or possibly Dexter's corpse to disappear behind the tower.
He's just falling. Like a chump. What the hell? I don't suppose there is any possibility he is simply committing suicide in grand style to save himself the torment?
Jean asked wistfully.
Not a chance.
Ryu shook his head as they all crossed the bridge as well in single file.
Either he'll regenerate the damage, or he's got some kind of spell to help him.
He paused.
Or I guess he might just bounce. Magic,
Dee said flatly before smiling.
Good news is, I know the spell too. Bad news is, I have to cast it while we're on the way down. Good news is, it looks like we'll have more than enough time for me to do that. Right,
Rand muttered, staring down.
So we just jump. And quickly,
Spar added, unrattled.
Or else he'll escape. Oh, no.
Ryu put a hand on the hilt of his sword.
That is not going to happen. On 3, then. 1, 2, go. Not again.
Jean wailed helplessly as they all hurled themselves into the abyss after the archpriest, Nina hovering at the back.
Any time now.
Rand yelled as they all fell, past the interior building's windows.
Emphasis on the now. I'm working on it.
Dees told him, as a white mist appeared around them, and their fall began to slow. Soon, they were descending at no more speed than a drifting leaf. Habaruka was out of sight, but below them, Ryu could see that their fall would continue past the ground level. Behind the building, the floor simply gave way to dark depths. They kept going, down further and further, until they eventually landed on a square pillar, an island in the darkness. A bridge led off in each of the 4 cardinal directions, each one eventually ending in a doorway.
I didn't see which way he went,
Nina said as she joined them.
Don't think any of us did.
Bao scowled.
I can smell him, though. He went that way.
He pointed north.
Yeah.
Kat nodded, then glanced sharply at him as his eyes widened, as did Dee's, Nina's, and Spar's.
What's up? That's not the only thing in that direction,
Dees told her.
Now that we're down here, I can sense something. Some ridiculously powerful source of magic that's just sitting there. Habaruka's moving towards it. And I think it's somehow connected to that magical setup that's keeping this whole place running. An additional power source on top of the obvious, perhaps.
Nina suggested.
If it's subtle enough, we wouldn't have noticed it unless we knew what to look for, when we first detected all that magic up in the city.
She flinched.
And something about it. I don't know how to describe it, not in words, but the feel of it is disturbing.
Spar finished for her.
Hideous. Evil. Wrong. And strangely familiar, as well, though I can't quite recall where from. Not like it matters,
Ryu growled, running down the bridge they had indicated, and they all followed him.
At this point, I don't really care what he brings out of the supply closet. He dies. All there is to say on the matter. As I said before, Mon Ami, unanimously agreed,
Jean murmured. More paladins and assassins assaulted them as they continued into the depths of the Grand Cathedral, and were dispatched just like those on the upper story. By now, all of their magic users had taken at least one dose of wise fruit, and those more physically inclined were sweating and breathing heavily, but nobody said a word of complaint. All of their thoughts were on the same page, exhaustion didn't matter, until Habaruka was dealt with. And so they continued, down a dark stone tunnel, the torches in the walls growing fewer and fewer the further they went.
We're coming up on it now,
Bao muttered, as they emerged into a wide, empty cavern. There was no floor, aside from a brief span at the tunnels on either side, simply an empty darkness. An implausible metal platform, flat and square, was attached to the other one, like a dock without pillars. There was none on their side, though, and no apparent way across.
It's magically powered,
Nina said, before anybody asked. Closing her eyes, she held out her hand, and the platform detached from the other side, hovering slowly through the air towards them, rattling slightly. Jean murmured, going pale.
We must ride this thing. For Habaruko,
Sten reminded him.
We can't let him get away from us now. Yes.
The prince took a deep breath, then nodded, as the platform touched their end.
Very well. I will endure this. Hold my hand,
Nina told him.
And close your eyes. The way we used to when we were children, on the walls, when we would pretend you could fly too.
They all piled on. Fortunately, the platform was more than large enough for all of them, even Rand. Jean's hand held tightly in her own, Nina moved the platform back over, and Ryu put a deliberate effort into not flinching every time it rattled or shook. Even so, it seemed like forever until they reached the other side, disembarked, and went through the arch. The tunnel was narrow, low, and short, and when they came out of it, it was like they were in another world. The floor was steel, flat and bare, and so were the walls, stretching up into the darkness out of sight from light cast by glowing glass panels set every few feet where torches would be normally. Ahead of them, the floor rose on both sides of the hall to about 10 feet up, leaving only a narrow passageway down the center. Atop both rises, columns were visible, climbing even further up before being capped by curious spheres about the size of a man. And then the spheres opened, revealing glowing, red steel eyes that glared down at them, one on each side.
Lost technology,
Spar murmured, staring back up at them.
I suppose we shouldn't really be surprised. Those things going to attack us if we go any further?
Bao asked, scowling.
They look like they will. Probably.
Dees nodded slowly.
The problem is, they're just the first line. I've seen setups like this before, and I'm guessing there's a lot more, further back. And they're so durable, taking them all out would take more magic power than all of us have. Not sure about that.
Rand shook his head, eating a berry of wise fruit and making a face.
What say we double team M? You and me. Oh.
She blinked, then slowly smiled.
I get it. Yeah, that could work. I mean no disrespect, but I must inquire nonetheless,
Jean said uneasily.
Does anybody else feel as if we should be standing further back? All the way back against this wall behind us, you mean?
Sten suggested, as everybody except for Rand and Dees scrambled away.
Yeah, I'm with you there, buddy.
The hall began to shake, metal beneath their feet trembling like a storm-tossed ocean, as the big man and the snake sorceress combined their wills to cast earthquakes. They were the only two who were able to use that particular element. Even Nina had never quite gotten the knack of it. At first, it looked as if the eyes were unaffected, but then they began bouncing and rattling around, and then spinning. From behind them, a bright red beam of light shot out, nailing the one on the left, which promptly returned fire. More and more beams shot out, until they were flying through the air like a storm of angry bees, and all of the dragonkin hit the deck. Eventually, the shaking stopped, and with it, the lasers.
Did you get 'em all?
Ryu asked, standing back up, a moment before one of the eyes hit the ground before him with a clank and rolled forward. It was completely severed, lids gaping open and frozen, and from its underside, strange lengths of metal and electricity coated in brightly colored plastic dangled like guts.
Looks like it,
Kat said, squinting.
I don't see any still up there. If Habaruko was expecting that to slow us down, he's going to be disappointed. Who's there?
A new voice called from the far side of the hall. It was an old man's voice, deep but tired, a great grey weariness in it that remained audible despite its sharp tone.
Stay back. Not going to happen,
Ryu yelled back as they ran forward, single file, down the passageway.
Whoever you are, just stay out of our way. We don't have any particular grudge against you, but if we have to go through you, we will. What?
The old man demanded, sounding stunned.
Then. You are not followers of the Church of Saint Eva. Not a chance,
Kat snapped.
We're pretty much the exact opposite. Whoa, what the hell?
Emerging from the other side, she skidded to a halt, and Ryu had to do the same to avoid crashing into her. Any irritation he felt was silenced as he saw what had made her pause. Ahead of them was the far wall of the hall, with no other doors or passageways visible. Instead, a gigantic metal device covered most of said wall, like a larger, more advanced version of one they had seen before. Once in High Fort, in a secret chamber, and then again below their own town, inside the well that the townspeople had excavated. Raised 10 feet in the air was a strange sort of booth, with a chair set in it, steel shutters closed around whoever sat there, locking them in while leaving their head and upper torso exposed. Below the seat, on the front, was another steel eye, though this one was closed at the moment. The entire thing was elaborately cast, as if to resemble a Gothic, ornamental pillar, but it did nothing to hide the true purpose of the device. A glowing panel of glass was set below the eye, and below that, a board covered in tiny squares, each bearing a letter or a number.
Who? No, what are you doing here?
The old man trapped in the device demanded, squinting at them. He had the look of a once strong man ravaged by his imprisonment, his skin was sickly, like a deep tan now gone pale, and was stretched in a way that suggested muscular atrophy rather than loss of fat. His hair and beard, both snow-white, were long and wild, his jaw strong and his brow heavy. There was something familiar about him, but Ryu couldn't quite place it.
Are you here to kill me? Like we said, we're just here for Habaruko,
Sten said quietly, eyes racing over the entire scene.
Looks like you're not here by choice. Tell us where he went, and maybe we'll come back and bust you out once we finish with him. Maybe.
Bao muttered.
Come on, man. Ha 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 ha.
Habaruka's voice echoed through the hall, and everybody started looking around for the source of it.
Why, I'm right here, of course. Right behind my guest here, in his quarters. If you wish to continue chasing me, it's the simplest thing in the world. All you have to do is clear him out of your way. Yes.
The old man whispered.
After all these years, finally, freedom. Kill me, whoever you are. I don't know who you are, or what has brought you to this accursed place, but I beg of you, free me from my torment. Please, for the love of whatever god you do believe in, or none at all if you do not. By whatever it is you hold true, kill me. Yes, by all means, kill him.
Habaruka gloated.
He has done his duty in the service of our god for many years now, and such devotion should be rewarded, should it not? If death is what he desires, then who are we to disagree? And you are in the business of providing death, among other services, are you not? Of course, he has no means by which to pay you for your service as most of your clients do, so you will have to consider it an act of charity, but I'm sure that's well within your capabilities. Or is it truly only about the zenny for you? Forget it.
Kat yelled.
Look, old man, just hold on, okay? We'll get you out of there and clear this shit out of the way. No, there's no time.
The old man told her as a horn began to blare, and a red light began to flash from far above.
You must hurry, and kill me, before this vile machinery awakens fully, and acts to defend itself.
More. We still need more power. God needs more power. Give yourselves to our God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your bodies and souls to God. You are destined to become God's power.
What she said,
Ryu growled, mind racing. Part of his refusal was instinctual, something about the old man that resonated with him even though they'd never met before, but only part.
That bastard's made enough of a bloodbath out of this already. I don't know who you are, none of us do, but that doesn't matter. Nobody else is dying on our account because of him.
He bit his lip, glancing at his team.
Can't transform, though, I'd just wipe him out, too. Once we get him out of there, I can, but... Like Nina told you, save it for Habaruko.
Sten reminded him.
Let me do it. I'll have him out of that thing in a jiffy, and then she and Deez can go to town on it. Don't touch it.
Deez snapped, even as he started to reach forward.
If you touch any part except for the controls while the automatic defense system is activated, it'll electrify the outer surface and fry you.
She narrowed her eyes.
Normally, we'd be able to target the power source for the defense system. It's usually separate, on this model, but it looks like Habaruka removed it. If it's running solely on its own generated power. How good of a magician were you, geezer? Oh, he has far more than that, sorceress of Wisdom,
Habaruka said smugly, louder than before so as to be heard over the horn.
His own personal magic is sufficient to power the entire city of Evray, this beacon of light and holiness that will draw our God into this world. Yes.
The old man groaned.
All of my life, I followed the path of Saint Eva without doubt or question, only to find that the truth was more horrible than I could have ever imagined. My God, my religion, my faith. All of them lies, deception spread by demons in the service of one who I believed to be salvation, and who instead will bring destruction to all the world. 4 years now I have served him further, against my will, and now you have come. Break this machine, and me along with it. Grant me peace at last, so that I will not have to see the end of the world I love. We'll have to do it the hard way, then.
Ryu decided, frowning, as the eye on the front of the machine opened. Whatever it was that was familiar about him, it was nagging at his mind, more and more with every word. From above, 2 more plummeted out of the darkness and came to a halt hovering on either side of the old man, electric metal guts dangling out of their undersides, but still clearly functional. All 3 eyes rolled in their sockets, before focusing on the team.
Take these suckers out, but without hurting him. Just relax, old man. We've done worse than this. No.
The old man howled.
Kill me, before.
His voice trailed off into an agonized scream as glowing light began to emanate from the inside of the booth around him, and he leaned forward as far as he could, stunned.
Intruders detected,
the device said, its voice flat and mechanical.
Guard eyes activated. Assuming Defense Protocol Omega. Begin with Operation A. What, are we in kiddie school?
Cat cracked, running forward with her battle staff at the ready, and bringing it around to slam against the lower guard eye, only to wince.
Learning our letters? Yow, that smarts. Hey? No.
The guard eye on the right glared at her, and a whip of lightning screamed down, lashing them one by one, everybody writhing as the voltage coursed through them.
One healing coming right up.
Bao gasped, and a moment later, magic poured over them again, restoring the damage that had been wrought.
Let's try something else, then,
Sten suggested, steepling his hands before him, and the air around the guard eye on the right detonated in an explosion that rattled it, but did little actual damage.
Oh, come on. That's all. The elemental balance here is complicated,
Deez explained, raising her cane.
Both offensively and defensively. I'll try it on one of the others.
She repeated his spell, this time aiming for the lower one, and it proved more effective, cracking the hull slightly. Before anybody could cast another spell, though, said guard eye narrowed its lids, and a fireball slammed into her, sending her flying backwards.
You okay?
Rand asked, healing her.
I'm good,
she groaned.
Nina, are you seeing what I am? I believe so,
the princess replied, as Ryu ran forward to help Cat, the 2 of them continuing to hack and slash at the lowest eye. Their weapons were only putting minor dents in it, but they kept going.
I'll test it further.
Raising a hand, she returned the favor dealt her friend, nailing the guard eye on the left with a fireball of her own that caused a bit of metal to drip off, sizzling hot.
Yes, now I understand. Of course.
Jean raised his rapier, and a head of ice appeared before the same guard eye, breathing freezing air onto it. This did absolutely nothing, and the guard eye summoned up several ice lumps half its own size, pelting him with them at high speed.
Qua. Each eye has an elemental affinity,
Spar explained, healing him.
They are resistant to those, and weak to another element. Operation complete,
the machine said, and the old man screamed again as it drew more power from him.
8 operations remaining until Delta Storm is engaged. Commencing Operation B.
The guard eye on the right glared at Ryu and Cat, and the room began to shake, throwing them back.
Make that a double elemental affinity,
Spar added as it went flying.
Of course, the weaknesses will also be paired. Never mind that.
Deez yelled, flying head over tail and landing painfully.
Ow. We gotta take them out before they finish that countdown.
Duh. Bao healed them again.
No way the old man can take 10 hits of that. It's not just that, though, is it?
Sten grimaced, trying a fireball of his own on the guard eye on the left and smirking as it sizzled in.
What the hell's a Delta Storm? You do not want to know,
Deez assured him, shaking her head as she cast the same spell Jean had, aimed at the guard eye on the right. It froze up, in more ways than one, but cast a retaliatory spell all the same, blasting Cat with an atmospheric detonation.
Hope we don't have to find out,
Rand grunted, healing her again and eating another wise fruit.
I'm starting to overdo it on these things, guys. Don't take any more, then,
Ryu said, hacking further at the lower eye.
Save what you've got left for healing, and only when Bao and Spar can't handle it. An excellent suggestion,
Spar agreed.
Especially since I am able to heal a single position, but have yet to master doing so upon the whole group at once. Oh, my.
The guard eye on the left was casting again, this time a spell that Ryu had never seen before. Droplets of water began to fall from above, almost like rain, but instead of hitting them, they coagulated in midair to form the shapes of fish, which swarmed over them, biting and tearing.
Ow, 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 ow.
He yelled, cutting at them, but against water, his sword was useless.
What the hell? Ugh.
Deez snarled.
I wondered how it was going to do that, outside of actual water. Now I wish I hadn't. You must admit, it's rather ingenious,
Nina said, voice calm but angry nonetheless, as the magic faded and the fish disappeared.
I'll reward it appropriately.
Another fireball hit the guard eye, exposing some of its metal guts on one side.
And I shall assist our valiant friends,
Jean added, running forward to add jabs and swipes to Ryu and Cat's attacks.
Take that, and that, and that. Operation B complete,
the machine said, accompanied by the old man's howling.
7 operations remaining until Delta Storm is engaged. Commencing Operation C.
The lower eye flashed, and Ryu, Jean and Cat were barely able to leap back in time as a wall of silver light appeared around the enemies.
Damn it, not this shit again.
Cat snarled. Behind the barrier, the other 2 guard eyes were both covering all of them, and the old man as well, with healing magic.
Well, on the plus side, at least they're keeping the old guy going. We won't have to worry about him dying before we get him out of there. No, but our chances of being able to do so are substantially decreased now,
Nina said clinically. The damage in all of their hulls was being repaired by the magic just as effectively as if they had been biological.
I don't quite know what a Delta Storm is either, but I do have an active enough imagination to know I'd rather keep it that way. Good instincts, too.
Deez nodded sharply.
The worst part is, we can't unload most of our more powerful spells without killing him. The shape he's in, he'd never be able to take it. A freeze or a bomb is about as high caliber as it gets for single targets. Then we shall have to be as practical and effective as possible,
Spar concluded.
Ryu, Cat, continue what you are doing. Jean, Deez, focus on the eye on the right. Utilize ice magic, since none of us can use water. Nina, Sten, concentrate on the leftmost foe. Fire will be most effective, earth would do as well, save for the fact that it is airborne. Should any of you destroy your target, assist Ryu and Cat, using lightning or wind, either one will suffice. That leaves you, me, and Rand,
Bao noted.
We should forget the offensive and concentrate on the healing, right? Correct.
Spar nodded.
We will have to, in order to survive. So far, their attacks have been marginal, but I suspect they will now increase in potency. We can only hope that one of the 3 will continue to utilize a single target attack each round. As long as it does so, I will be able to heal that one. Bao, do so after the first group spell, and Rand, after the second. Operation C complete,
the machine informed them, as the silver wall dropped and the old man screamed.
6 operations remaining until Delta Storm is engaged. Commencing Operation D. Go.
Ryu yelled, and he and Cat ran forward, as the lowest guard eye called down the thunder. Lances of lightning slammed into them all, and they screamed as well, falling to the floor and twitching. And yet, with a glance at each other, the 2 warriors rose again and ran forward to return the favor with staff and sword as Bao healed them, as well as the rest. The others did the same, Jean and Deez summoning up twin heads of ice to assault the rightmost guard eye, whose surface began icing over. At the same time, Sten and Nina threw fireball after fireball at the guard eye on the left, which responded by echoing Jean and Dee's. The head of ice it created blasted Nina with frigid magic that sent her sprawling to the floor, ghostly white and trembling violently.
Nina!
Ryu and Kat both yelled, glancing over their shoulders.
D.
She chattered as Spar healed her. She created another fireball, this one stationary and close to her, and the effects faded.
Don't stop. Keep going.
Floating back into the air, she returned to throwing fire, only to groan as the guard eye on the right called up a four-sided pyramid of flame. Everybody went down, screaming, as the fire coated them, but Rand was able to heal them before long.
Operation D complete,
the machine said, draining more power from the old man.
5 operations remaining until Delta Storm is engaged. Commencing Operation E.
A miniature tornado that was still larger than Rand descended, sucking everybody up and slamming them around into each other before throwing them away into the walls.
Pain,
Sten muttered, slowly sliding off.
Damn.
Kat growled as Bao healed them again, popping a berry of wise fruit himself.
Now we gotta get close again. How many seconds is that wasting? Too many,
Ryu growled, accompanying him as she ran forward.
We're not going to be able to take this one down before they heal themselves again. Not even close. You won't have to,
Dees told them.
That wasn't the plan. Just do enough damage that it won't be able to heal everything, and with luck that should be enough.
Despite her words, the sorceress was breathing heavily, the battle was taking its toll on her stamina, already somewhat drained by all the action they had seen in Evray so far, just as much as on any of the other members of the group, and she had been one of those who had never been blessed with an abundance of it to begin with.
Maybe,
Nina said, tossing more fire, as did Sten.
But this isn't going well. They're only using medium-strength magic, and it's taking everything we have just to break even and stay alive. We might not even live to see this Delta Storm if we don't take at least one of them out before they do another round of healing themselves. Good news for you, then,
Sten grunted.
Jean and Dees might be able to do that.
The guard eye on the right was frozen up, in more than one sense of the word, its entire exterior covered in a thin layer of ice, it hung motionless in the air, though its pupil still glowed.
Indeed.
Jean agreed, then blinked as more water fell from above. This team, the shapes it summoned were much larger, fully grown sharks that ripped and tore at everybody viciously before they dissipated. Groaning, Rand healed them all, just in time for the guard eye on the right to cause another quake. This one was fierce enough to actually tear up the floor, which compounded the damage caused by the motion, and when it died down they all lay scattered and moaning.
Not yet.
Dees whispered, casting again.
Almost. So close.
Jean groaned, doing the same.
Operation E complete,
the machine replied, even as the two heads of ice assaulted the eye on the right one last time.
4 operations remaining until Delta Storm is engaged. Commencing Operation F. No.
Ryu howled, as did the old man, as the silver wall appeared once more. For a moment, he thought they were lost, but then he saw that Dees and Jean's spells were still going. Everybody watched, breathless, as they faded away. For a moment, he almost gave up. And then the guard eye on the right slipped downward, then fell to the ground and shattered like glass.
Yes. All right.
Bao healed them all.
Not quite according to plan, but we got a chance. And the other 2 will only be healed half as much. I'll take the one on the left,
Dees told Jean, who nodded.
You help Ryu and Kat. Operation F. Incomplete.
The machine said, only hesitating for a moment, both eyes partially healed, the one on the left was more damaged than the lower one, but both still bore damage from before.
3 operations remaining until Delta Storm is engaged. Commencing Operation G.
And then the hammer of lightning descended, and they all screamed anew.
Go.
Bao whispered, healing them, and they struggled back to their feet, charring and agony fading.
Before it's too late.
Roaring wordlessly, Ryu and Kat and Jean charged forward, as Sten and Nina and Dees all threw fireballs at the guard eye remaining in the air. Even as it was engulfed in flames, however, it still cast one last spell, and a wolf of ice charged through them, scattering them like bowling pins as it froze them solid.
Shit.
Dees hissed, calling up a flaming pyramid in the center of their formation that warmed them as Rand healed the damage.
That's almost all I got.
The big man grunted, looking exhausted.
One more spell, and then I'm done. Then throw it at the machine.
Ryu ordered him as the second guard eye crashed to the floor, a flaming wreck.
Everybody else, too. Give this last sucker an all-out offensive. Air and lightning. We might not live through another spell. Hey.
Rand blinked.
Yeah, I know a lightning spell too, but I'll hit you guys. And the old man. We can take it,
Ryu said, meeting the old man's eyes. As he had expected, when he did, the ancient prisoner stared back, and there was something familiar in them. Something that hadn't given up, not as much as his words had suggested.
And so can he. He can take one shot. Come on, before it's too late. Operation G. Incomplete.
The machine replied, a sword and staff and rapier all carved dents into it, and were accompanied by whip and crossbow, as Spar ran up and Bow fired. 3 atmospheric detonations followed, and then a lightning bolt, scoring the entire machine as well as the guard eye.
2 operations remaining until Delta Storm is engaged. Commencing Operation H.
The sole remaining guard eye gleamed. And then fell forward, out of the socket it had been implanted in.
We did it.
Cat roared, and everybody else cheered as well, weary and exhausted.
Operation H incomplete,
the machine said, then, and everybody froze for a moment, until it continued.
Error. Error. Defense system disabled. Delta Storm cannot be used at this time. Try again later. Defense Protocol Omega is now shutting down. Ugh.
Rand fell forward on one knee, holding his head.
Somebody else get him out of there. I need a moment. It won't jolt me if I get up there now, right?
Cat asked Deez, who nodded.
Pretty sure. Right.
Backing up, she took a running jump, flipped, and landed just below the old man, gripping the lower lip of the opening for his head. Bracing herself against it with her legs, she heaved and pulled the metal plate off with a screech. Falling backwards, she flung it back over all of their heads and turned her descent into a backflip, landing on her hands and springing back to her feet just in time to catch the old man as he tumbled out of the machine limply.
Easy there, old-timer. I've got you. Thank you,
he whispered, limbs hanging limply as if he were a ragdoll. His priest's robes were filthy and ragged, but parts of them still held their original blue dye, something else that seemed to nag at Ryu's memory.
Whoever you are, however many of you there are, I will never be able to repay you for this. I had given up hope on ever being freed from that abominable device. What do you mean, how?
Ryu started to ask, only to be cut off by a spectacular crash from above, as the room began to shake around them.
Error,
the machine said, as the sirens sounded and the red lights pulsed again.
Error. Main power source removed. Proper shutdown procedure has not been implemented. This system has been severely damaged. Evacuate immediately. Repeat, evacuate immediately. What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Rand demanded.
It means we need to get out of here, now.
Deez snapped, wide-eyed.
We blew out the power supply for the entire city of Evray. It's all going to break apart, and we're standing right in the middle of it.
And Habaraka's laughter echoed through the room, while the shaking increased.
Well?
The archpriest asked gleefully.
What are you waiting for? I'm right here, waiting to grant your wish. If you want to fight me, all you have to do is clear that machinery out of the way. Just come on back here, and I'll be happy to oblige you. Damn.
Ryu glared at the machine, knowing full well that there was no way they could clear it out of the way in time.
It's hopeless, Spar said firmly. There's no way we'll be able to get to him before this room collapses. He's beaten us, this time. We have no choice but to retreat for now. Spar's right.
Sten nodded sharply, eyes dark.
The bastard has us. We'll track him down later, but right now, we need to get out of here, now. Otherwise, we'll never be able to pay him what we owe him. So we just walk away?
Ryu demanded angrily.
After everything he's done? After.
He trailed off, unable to say the names.
It's not our call, buddy,
Bao said flatly, shaking his head.
It sucks, but there's nothing we can do about it. Like Sten said, he got us. I want him dead as much as you do, Ryu,
Rand growled, glaring at the machinery.
Maybe even more. But I'm not stupid, and neither are you. Even if we could clear all this stuff away in time, we're all worn out. If he's got anywhere near as much power as he's shown so far, we wouldn't stand a chance against him, in this condition. I'll transform again,
Ryu argued, still furious.
If I can just nail him with that. And what if it doesn't work?
Dees told him.
The breath of fire hasn't on any of the demon lords we've met so far. They all had countermeasures. He's the most cunning of them all. Do you think he'll really just let you blast him? I feel the desire for vengeance and justice, myself, Ryu,
Jean said, voice low and urgent.
It is not a familiar sensation to me, but I know it, all the same. We will have it, against Habaruko, someday. But whether we stay or go, it will not be today. If we remain here, and die, we will never have it from him, but if we leave, and live, then the chance is still ours. Damn it all!
Ryu howled again, slamming his fist into the deactivated machine.
Isn't there anything we can do? Some way we can get him? No.
Nina shook her head, putting a hand on his shoulder.
There isn't. I'm sorry, Ryu, but that's all there is to it. Sometimes there really is no option but to retreat. You know how much I hate that,
Kat agreed, walking up next to him and putting her own hand on his other shoulder.
But she's right. They're all right. If we die here, we'll never be able to pay that bastard back.
Power. We need more of your power. God needs more of your power. Give yourself to God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your bodies and souls to God. You are destined to become God's power.
Shit,
Ryu closed his eyes.
Shit.
After a moment more, he opened them again and nodded, turning away.
All right. We're out of here. Allow me, my friends,
the old man said, beckoning them closer. Kat had set him down, and he was sitting on the floor, but despite his inability to stand, there was still strength in his eyes.
Gather around me, and I will take us from this place. It won't work,
Dees told him, as the others all moved closer. She was already standing next to him.
Even if it's starting to collapse, the magical barrier built around this city will keep any spatial relocation spells from.
She fell silent as the room began to shimmer around them, and the noise began to fade. The last thing they heard was Habaruko, laughing at them once more, and then the basement was gone, sliding away from them to be replaced by the familiar environs of their own town. They were standing before their home, as the sunset blazed above their heads, and the townspeople went about their business, none of them so much as turning to stare. They were all used to such surprises from the team by now.
How did you do that?
Nina demanded, after a moment of silence from everybody.
That should have been impossible. Even if you had managed to successfully cast an exit spell, the most it could have done was take us outside of the building. You would have had to cast a warp spell afterwards, to bring us here. To do both at once. Many of what are commonly believed to be the limitations of the art are, in fact, not so insurmountable as most practitioners believe,
the old man explained, leaning forward as if about to collapse.
There are ways. It is simply a matter of finding them. That is not the only question at hand, either,
Spar added.
To bring us here. The warp spell can normally only target destinations which the practitioner has personally seen. Yet, somehow, I doubt you have ever been to our town, sir. Certainly not in recent months. How did you know to bring us here, let alone actually do so? It seems that certain factors can alter the equation somewhat,
the old man chuckled, turning his head, and the way he looked to the side of Spar with his white, gleaming eyes suddenly made the dots connect in Ryu's mind.
You see, I am blind, my friend. Habaruka blinded me, among other torments. Flares of light, so bright that no human could endure them, after my eyes had grown accustomed to darkness. I doubt I will ever be able to see again. Shit,
Bao muttered, then paused.
Wait, this still doesn't make sense. I guess that not being able to see might have solved the problem of only being able to go somewhere you've already seen, but how would you know to come here? I chose as the spell's target destination that which all of you thought of as home, though I knew not where that would be,
the old man explained.
I am not quite sure how I was able to, myself, yet I sensed that I could, and so I did. I can see why Habaruko had you hooked up to that machine,
Dees murmured.
Your ability must have been phenomenal, back before he did. Who were you, old man? We can save that for later,
Bao said.
I'd heal him, but I'm not sure it would do much good. We need to get this guy to case, fast. What he said,
Rand agreed, carefully picking him up.
We could all probably use a visit, but we're used to taking a beating. We can wait. This is a lot worse than that, so he'd better go first. I just hope she's not in the middle of dinner,
Sten cracked, but there was no real humor in his voice. Like all of them, he obviously still felt the sting of their failure.
There's no point in all of us cluttering up her place,
Bao said, shaking his head.
Me and Rand will take him over. All right.
Ryu slowly nodded.
The rest of us. We should probably get some food and some sleep. The sooner we're back in shape, the sooner we can figure out what we're going to do next. Yeah.
Bao glanced at the old man.
With any luck, this fellow'll be able to tell us some more about our enemies once he's feeling better. That's something, at any rate. I would be glad to help, however I can,
the old man assured him.
I owe you all more than words can say. Hey, you saved our asses right back,
Cat reminded him, smiling, though it looked forced.
We'd have been killed down there, if it wasn't for you. To free you was no obligation, mon ami,
Jean said, shaking his head.
Any sane man would have done the same. What was done to you was truly monstrous. It was,
Nina agreed, shivering.
I never would have believed anybody could do something like that, a year ago.
Her eyes flashed.
Habaruko, and Baruberi. And even Evans himself. I won't rest until they're all dead for this. That seems to be the way it goes,
Rand muttered.
Those three. They're the root of this. Habaruka most of all.
Sten said calmly, coldly.
If he gets away, then he'll just keep doing what he does, for who knows how much longer. As soon as possible, we have to find him, and do what should have been done 3,000 years ago. Right now, though.
Cat said quietly, staring at her feet.
Somebody should probably head back over to Scotland. To check up on Smith and tell her what happened, and... you know. Take care of things there. I'll come with you,
Sten offered.
Probably too keyed up still to get any sleep just yet anyways. Need some time to wind down. Jean, you mind coming along for the ride and giving us a spell there in bed? You do not even need to ask, mon ami,
Jean assured him, smiling sadly.
It is our last duty, to those who were both comrades and friends. I would be glad to assist. I'll fill Nero in on what happened,
Dee said.
See if I can talk him into bringing some food back to our place from the Rivobs. I don't know about the rest of you, but right now, once I do head back up to my room, I don't want to set my tail outside of it for at least 24 hours. Maybe even 48. I don't think anybody's going to blame you for that,
Ryu agreed.
Let's plan on taking the next couple of days off, all of us. Maybe we'll get together and talk about what we're going to do next, but I don't want us actually doing it until we're all back to 100%. Yeah.
Sten slowly nodded.
Good plan. Just keep in mind, whatever our plan is, it's going to have to be a good one. Tomorrow morning, if anybody's willing to take me, I'm going to want to make a quick trip back to the island of Evray to see just how bad it is. Chances are, we blew it off the surface of the world, and if that's the case, word's going to get out. The bastard might have gotten away, but even so. Nothing's going to be the same anymore, after this. For any of us. We knew that, going in.
Ryu shook his head, turning away.
We just didn't know how right we were.
Without another word, he walked past the statue of Lawton and into the house.
Chief,
Nero said, leaning back in his chair behind his desk.
So, how'd it go?
He met Ryu's eyes, and his own widened.
Oh. That bad, hey? Worse,
Ryu replied wearily.
Diesel fill you in. Just leave my dinner by the door, I'll have it when I wake up. And if anybody has anything for me except for food, tell him to come back next week.
Continuing forward, he walked up the stairs, went to his room, and collapsed on his bed without bothering to disrobe, asleep before he even hit the mattress. Power. We need yet more of your power. God needs more of your power. Give your soul to God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your heart and mind to God. You will become God's power. When he woke again, for a moment he thought that he had only slept for moments. The sun was just as dim as it had been when they'd returned. Only once he looked out his window did he realize that it was early the next morning, and the sun was rising again. He had slept for at least 12 hours straight without so much as stirring, despite the voice in the dark that plagued his nightmares even stronger than before. Even then, he still felt exhausted, everything ached, and even the thought of transforming made him shudder. Opening his door, he found that a plate had been left outside of it with a metal lid to try and keep it hot, along with a mug of ale. Despite Nero's thoughtfulness, the meal had gone cold simply due to how long it had been there, but he ate it nonetheless, not really caring. Once he was done, he left the room, ignoring the urge to just go back to sleep, and walked down to sit next to the statue of Loden as the birds sang in the morning air.
Hello, Ryu,
the spirit of the god said eventually.
Hey,
he replied. For several minutes, neither of them said anything more, but eventually he spoke again.
Did you know?
Some, Loden admitted.
I knew of Ray Braddock, of what his fate would be, and that he would meet it bravely. I knew who it was you would face, and what he was. We have met before, Yuna and I have awaited his demise eagerly ever since, though I have always been disappointed.
His voice was dark and full of wrath, as much as Dee's had been, when he spoke of the archpriest, but then it returned to his usual calmness.
But that is all that I knew. The rest is all on him.
Ryu slowly nodded.
It wasn't destiny bullshit. The rest just happened because that's what he is. It's what he does.
Closing his eyes and gritting his teeth, he lowered his head into his arms.
He got away from us. We took out Evray, but our real target got away clean. Habaruku escaped, and there was never any way we could have stopped him. We were never actually a threat to him. He had us playing his game from the moment we walked in there. He won. Today,
Loden agreed after a moment.
But tomorrow is another story. Where do we even go from here?
Ryu demanded, not moving.
Evray was it. The big one. We all thought that once we were done there would be something, anything, that would be a straight path to finishing this once and for all. But it wasn't. We've got nothing to go on, no further leads. We're dead in the water here. The situation is not quite as dire as you think,
Loden assured him.
Though the path ahead of you may seem dark, there yet remains one light to guide you forward. You may not be aware of it at this moment, but soon, I think, it will reveal itself to you and you will have your answer. I hope so,
Ryu said, not sure if he believed the god or not.
I really hope so.
A moment later, he felt something cold and wet on top of his head, and raised his head to stare up at the cloudy gray sky in disbelief. It was snowing, in southern Oria, near the equator.
Well,
he said quietly after another moment of stunned silence.
I can't possibly see how this could be anything but a bad sign. Remember my words, Ryu,
Loden said calmly.
It is the way of these things. The worst always comes at the end. The darkness before the dawn. Winter comes before spring. But in the end, it fades away, and hope returns. Then the sooner it gets here, the better.
Ryu shook his head.
I think we could all use some, right now. Wait until the rest of the town wakes up and they see this.
Before either of them could say another word, something ripped at his consciousness in a way he felt with his mind rather than any of his senses. Something he sensed from Kay's house, 3 rows down on the left side of the town. A moment later, the front door of her house burst open, and Kay ran into the street. Her hair was mussed, her eyes wide and panicked, and a robe had been thrown on hastily over her nightgown.
Ryu,
she said, running towards him.
Quick, wake somebody up. Somebody who knows the drain spell. What's going on?
Ryu asked, jumping to his feet, as he heard cries of irritation from the upper stories of their house behind him.
Is it that old man? Yes.
Kay nodded quickly.
There's some sort of magical overload or something. I'm not sure what it is, but he's in agony, and if it keeps building. What the hell's going on out there?
Bao yelled from inside the building.
Loden, my head. Dees, Nina, Spar.
Ryu rattled off their names.
Need you down here, now. That's not an answer.
Rand growled as he stormed down the stairs, adjusting his toga as he came. Kat was on his heels, wearing her top but not any of her armor, or even her metal bracers. She was pulling her fingerless gloves on, and had her half-boots in hand, as did Rand.
Even I felt that one.
She agreed.
What the hell? It's the old man.
Ryu explained as Jean and Bao followed them down, both in similar states.
He's going to explode or something. What?
Sten demanded, baffled, as he joined them.
We don't want him to explode. Magical overload,
Nina guessed, wings folded behind her, dull-eyed and sleepy.
I should have seen it coming. We both should have,
Dees told her as Spar helped her down. Despite her words, she was still practically asleep on her tail, the grass man almost dragging her along.
We need to get over there and drain some of it off, quickly. Allow me,
Rand said, scooping both of them into his arms along with Nina and charging down the road. Ryu and Kei stepped out of his way, and he continued towards the doctor's house.
It never stops.
Cat snarled as the others followed in his wake.
Not even for a second. How am I still an optimist? How? You will feel better tomorrow, mademoiselle,
Jean assured her.
Moments such as this do not detract from the intrinsic joy of life itself, no.
He blinked and looked up.
Ah, and even now, a miracle comes to temper our despair. Look, mon amis. Snow. Not sure if I'd call that a miracle, big guy,
Sten quipped.
Matter of fact, I'd go with the exact opposite. Snow, in this part of the world? Bad sign. How did it happen?
Bao asked Kei.
I take it you were sleeping. Yes.
Kei nodded as they reached the house and followed Rand inside.
After you brought him over, I took a look at him. At the time, I thought it was a simple case of extreme malnutrition and atrophy. I did everything I could, and then let him rest, while I slept myself. I never saw this coming. None of us did,
Ryu assured her.
We'll just have to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Climbing the stairs and entering the guest room, they all stopped, staring. The old man was actually hovering in the air above his bed, suspended by an aura of blazing green light that crackled like fire, though nothing it touched was igniting. His teeth were bared, and his snow-white hair stood on end as he shook wildly.
Again.
Dee snapped, and she, Nina and Spar all murmured under their breath, siphoning magical power from the old man.
Again.
Once more they did, and this time it seemed to do the trick. The green blaze vanished, and he fell back onto his bed, moaning.
Okay,
Cat said, rubbing her eyes.
I might just be being. Well, me here. In fact, I'd bet good Zenny I am. But can I ask what the hell happened, anyways? Like Nina said,
Spar told her, somehow managing to seem irritated despite remaining as placid as usual.
Magical overload. Yeah, okay, but what does that mean?
Ryu demanded.
And is it going to keep happening? I'm afraid so.
Dees nodded.
In layman's terms. You all know how everybody has a basic level of magic power, right? Generally, the more skilled you are, the more power you have to draw upon, though that's not an absolute rule. Anyways, when you sleep for an extended period of time, your magical power restores to its maximum. The problem is, this guy's been hooked up to that damned machine for years now. He hasn't been at max since they put him there, because of the constant drain. I get it.
Bao snapped his fingers.
He can't take it anymore. His body's too weak to stand it. What's technically his normal state isn't anymore. He's used to the drain. So when his magic power tries to restore itself. Is there any cure?
Ryu asked quietly as the old man began to stir.
None.
Nina shook her head.
The only way would be to rehabilitate him, to restore his body to the point where he could handle it again, and at his age.
She left it hanging.
Ryu.
The old man asked, softly.
Is Ryu here? I told him your name,
Kei explained quietly, before anybody could ask.
All of your names. I hope you don't mind. Not at all,
Ryu assured her, before stepping forward.
Yes, sir. I'm here. My name is Ryu Battison, and I'm the leader of this group. The Dragon Kin. Have we met before? That all depends,
the old man said after a moment.
I know the chances are astronomical, and yet, I must ask. Have you ever been to a town called Gate, in the north? What?
Bao asked, quietly, in the silence that followed. Ryu took a deep breath, as memories threatened to overwhelm him, surging through his mind. Memories of a childhood lost, of a family disappeared, of a life that had vanished before he had even known it was happening.
Yeah. Yes, I was born there. I didn't stay long, though. Left when I was still a kid. Why? It is you.
Blind eyes searching for him, tears starting to fall, the old man smiled, raising a hand in the air.
After all these years, against all my expectations. It's you. Ryu. Do you remember that day? Yu had run out again, and I sent you to find her. I know how long it's been, and I doubt I'll ever be able to understand everything you've gone through. But please, tell me you remember. No way,
Cat whispered now.
It's impossible,
Nina agreed. But Ryu could only stare, as he took the old man's hand in his own, and he finally realized just why he looked so familiar. The years had taken the tan from his skin, the strength from his muscles, the straightness from his spine, and the grey from his hair. But he still knew him.
Dad!
He whispered, as his eyes leaked tears. Swaying to the symphony of destruction,